So, perfect. All right, we'll call to order the October, what is this date here? October the, what, 13th, 2020 meeting of the Springfield Community and Economic Development Commission meeting to order. I will call the roll. Karen Kahn. Changes to that, I'd entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We have new business to look at today, and our first business up is our public market that's 4th and Adams. And today we have David Lee and Tony Como here who will present their project to us. Whatever you want to do, whatever you're most comfortable with. Sure. Yes. Oh, can you turn your mic? Abby, can you hear him?
No.
Hear him now? No.
Even less.
I don't operate that. Maybe it's back there. Well, because I turned the podium on. Okay. Yeah. Is it on now?
Test now?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Everybody? All right, good. Yes, you're on, David. Thank you.
All right, good morning. My name is David Lee. I'm a local resident of Springfield. Tony and I are the managing partners of Adams Fourth Holdings, doing business as Public Market. Truly believe this will be a groundbreaking project for downtown and Springfield as a whole on many levels. We're here today to make our request for TIF financing for this public market. I know we presented a few weeks ago informally, but you still may be asking, who are these guys? What is this project? And why is anyone opening a new business downtown right now? To fully appreciate the proposal of this project and what we are about, let me give you the brief summary of who Adams Fourth Holdings is and what Public Market aims to do. I was born and raised in Springfield, went to Springfield High, went away to college, thinking I'd never come back. An unexpected job opportunity brought me back when I was 25. I always thought I'd move to a big city because of opportunity, and it was ironic that the place I thought lacked opportunity is the place that brought me back. When I'd been back for a year or two, I was very disheartened by the lack of pride in the community that I sensed and complaints about Springfield. I genuinely loved being back and had a new perspective of the positives we had here. I've been fortunate enough to travel a little bit and been around a lot of the United States by then. I connected with Lisa at DSI and got involved. I love our downtown. It has so much character, and a downtown is a representation of the soul of a city. No offense, but every city has nice suburban areas. A city that is thriving or dying shows itself pretty quick within 5 minutes of being in a downtown. I chose to concentrate my efforts there. Now I'm in medical device sales and really had no interest or play in being so involved other than just wanting to love where I live and make an impact. So here's really where the rubber meets the road for us. Roughly about a year ago, I'd been volunteering with DSI for 4 years and was the committee chair for a group we called Momentum on Main Street. We did programs to attract the next generation of entrepreneurs, developers, building owners to downtown, and hopefully educate them on different topics related to challenges they could potentially face. Little did I know at the time that as I was hosting the panel of interviews and helping people create connections and take action, I would be the one that would hook up with Tony over here and be pitching him on a project. For any of you that have been to downtowns across the nation, from medium to large cities, common spaces, food halls, markets, etc., have become very popular. Not to mention when you throw in adult beverages in a unique environment, they're dripping with energy and give you a unique experience from the traditional restaurant. As with many other concepts, they've started on the coast and moved to the Midwest. Sometimes you don't actually have to be that creative, just look to what is working elsewhere. I really love the idea of a space that creates an elevated experience for people, a place where conversation, connection, and creativity would flow, while of course enjoying excellent food and drinks in a unique setting. I long loved this building at the corner of 4th and Adams. One of the things DSI was hearing most from young professionals and all residents alike is a lack of that elevated experience, a city feel, and especially a rooftop. I had the vision, the idea, but I lacked a bit in the experience department. That's where Tony and the entire team came in. I met Tony as he was on this panel for the Momentum on Main Street Committee, talking about creative financing for entrepreneurs. And he was talking about equity-based crowdfunding. Long story short, Tony and I partnered up on the idea and put together a team of people with varied backgrounds and skills, all of which are crucial to the development of this project. I'm pretty proud of the fact that there are several other young professionals who are really making an effort to create change and call this a great place to live. Paired also with some individuals with years of relevant experience in the disciplines that are essential to completing something of this magnitude. I truly think we have the perfect mixture of vision, execution, and skill. Many of you know that Springfield was recently voted the #1 place to move post-COVID. I think we all know that there are some inherent advantages to being a resident of this community. We're a capital city, low cost of living, great place to raise a family, etc. We do hit several metrics, but there are several things that don't show up on those analytics. People want a quality of life that invigorates them, maybe even supports their dreams. People want to experience something unique and love where they live. Some people don't think there's enough to do here or enough culture to keep them here. We believe it's incumbent on this entire city to change that if we have any hopes of attracting and retaining the next generation and setting up our city for the future. So where does this project fit in? The public market will be a contemporary urban marketplace with an emphasis on locally sourced food and drink. It will be an experience like nowhere else in central Illinois, with 7 food vendors, a beer garden, and a rooftop bar. It will be the most unique space to host an event or meeting in the area. Of course, it's only located 800 feet from the current state capitol and the old state capitol, with views of both domes from the rooftop. All of this is anchored by a strong, structured building in an amazing location at 4th and Adams, where thousands of people descend upon the farmers market every Wednesday and Saturday. This couldn't be a more quintessential TIF proposal. We are taking a 15,000 square foot building that was built as a bank in the early 1970s and has sat vacant for over 20 plus years at a highly visible corner, and turning it into a destination and gem for downtown and Springfield as a whole. We will be adding almost 6,000 square feet of usable space to the building through the rooftop and decks off each level. The building will show in a very urban style, keeping the steel beams and the ductwork exposed. There will be seating throughout the space, and patrons will be able to flow between the different floors as they choose their food, table, or drinking spot. Because of COVID, we expanded some plans. We expanded the beer garden, the decks, and the rooftop to accentuate the outdoor space. We actually have more outdoor seating than indoor. Plus, who wouldn't want to hang in a cool beer garden or sip a cocktail on the rooftop with the sun setting over the Capitol building? I hope all that sounds amazing, because it really is. But even more unique than Springfield's first rooftop bar is the structure, the bones of the project, which, by the way, are 100% available to the public and fully disclosed in our Form C that we filed with the SEC. This isn't solely myself, Tony, or even the development team of other local Springfield professionals and entrepreneurs. The way the financing will be structured is through equity crowdfunding, meaning that theoretically, hundreds or even potentially thousands of people could be part owners, which will unlock a new frontier in development. We're not just doing this for our good, we're doing this for the good of the city. And hundreds or thousands of others can be a part of it on an ownership level. It's important to know that equity crowdfunding has been done all over the country, but it's most commonly known for its success in the brewing and tech spaces. This will be unique. Across country, there's been a desire to solidify city cores and also a heavy emphasis on retaining and attracting talent, while also giving people pride and a love for where they live through high quality of life. Of course, a lot of factors go into that, but our emphasis on an elevated experience in the heart of downtown Springfield, offering food, beverage, a unique space, but really we're offering community, conversation, connection through those conduits, will be a huge asset to the downtown and the community as a whole. A building that has sat vacant for 20 plus years on a prominent corner of downtown deserves to have a prominent renovation. 4th and Adams is possibly the new heart of downtown with the Adams family and the farmers market activities that already exist. We need the city's help through a TIF request to complete this gem of a project for Springfield. I'm going to turn it over to Tony here to explain kind of in general what an equity crowdfunding raise is and what that means in regards to the project. Thank you.
Thanks, David. It's hard to follow an act that well. I appreciate the opportunity. What we are introducing with Adams Fourth Holdings DBA, the public market, is that new structure called equity financing, so that with some of the rules that were passed 4 years ago with the Jobs Act, and then which has developed into crowdfunding and more publicly advertised equity participation, it's opened up a whole new area. And as David mentioned, 500 or 1,000 or more people actually will be able to invest in a project that owns a business and a building in downtown Springfield. And we pointed that out. We've had excellent response as people have walked through already on Wednesdays and Saturdays. We've had 1,000, 1,500 people come through. We're showing them some of the renderings and they're very excited about it, both because of what it is and because they want to come back downtown. I have to tell you, my background, having done real estate for many, many years around the country, I've never seen as much excitement from a community as we've seen with the people who have come through, because they have a couple of options, they want more. And this is the kinds of things, as he mentioned, that's attracted not only the young professionals. Interestingly, we're having as many people over 60 as under 40 become excited about it. So that the equity crowdfunding, the equity financing opportunity that we're raising does two things. It brings us long-term partners, long-term customers, and people who are committing to put some of their money into a downtown business and structure. Ironically, you'll hear this in the future, along with shopping local, we're encouraging people to invest local, put your money in Main Street, not Wall Street. That's a whole new direction. Hopefully, with this area of equity crowdfunding, which is evolving and changing as we speak, it's getting better and better from the SEC. This is going to open up some new doors of opportunity, not just for us, but for other businesses like ours who are throughout the city, and small entrepreneurs who want to capitalize on the fact that people want a better place. So that's what we're doing on the equity crowdfunding. As David mentioned, we've already filed our Form C with the SEC in a very detailed financial statement. They require extremely complex work. So once you get past that, it's frankly longer to put that together than to build a building. But once you do that, again, it becomes very public. We have to dot every I and cross every T, but now we're officially registered. We're literally just a couple of days away from being able to announce public investment. And so far from the response we've had, it's been outstanding. We're actually having to hold people off, say, no, we can't take your money yet. But that's very encouraging. I think that we've noticed this ourselves on Wednesdays and Saturdays when we open the building up, and we show people the renderings. I mean, it's literally been thousands of people extremely excited both about the project and where it is in downtown, and that they have an opportunity to become partners. So we're excited about that. We're open for questions if anyone has any or would like to ask us anything, folks.
I will open it up
Go
to
ahead.
the commissioners now. Commissioners, you have a project checklist in front of you for this particular project. I will just, to keep this from anyone over talking anyone else, I'll just go around and call on each of the commissioners and see if they have any questions or comments. Karen Kahn, do you have any questions, comments?
Could you come back to me? I'm trying to pull up the checklist. The only thing I have before me is the presentation.
Okay, all right. Sandy Hamilton?
Yes, I do have a couple questions. I did watch the video that you sent and very excited about the project, but can you explain to me what you mean about this, about vendors, 7 vendors, and what the equity crowdfunding, like the breakdown, where does it start? You know, what are you looking for?
Let me, the vendors are the restaurateurs who will be leasing the kitchens from us. So we'll have 7 separate locations, 6 restaurants and 1 mini restaurant or mini food place. They will be leased. We're building the entire project out and they're leasing those from us. We've had 3 or 4 people already give us letters of intent that they're interested in coming in. And it's a variety of food options. And so that part is fairly easy in that it's like a food court, like a food hall on 2 levels with multiple options for food,
Okay.
all independently owned.
That's what I had envisioned, but I was just curious how that was working. Okay.
And then the second question was about the equity financing.
Yes.
Okay.
Like what levels?
Actually, interestingly, we're somewhat restricted from going into those details, other than what's already published in our Form C. And what you'll see is that there's minimums and maximums. Crowdfunding as a rule allows people to invest as little as $100 up to $2,200, regardless of your economic structure. They also allow going up to $107,000 for some investors based on your net worth, your income and net worth. So that's the broad range of what equity crowdfunding. So we fit into those early parameters very easily, and we think we'll have a lot of excitement for that. People put in minimum investments up to the maximum of $2,200, and we think actually there'll be a gazillion of those, a lot of people who are interested in that part.
I agree. That's what I was curious to know, what the kind of the bottom, I guess, is to the top. So you explained that. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have, Val.
Okay, thanks, Sandy. Lakeisha?
Val, she asked the same exact question. The second one that I was bringing up, I had wrote down was the crowdfunding, and he just broke that down. But great presentation, and I'm excited for it too.
Okay, great minds think alike. Thank you. Sheila?
Yeah, can you give us a breakdown, like percentage wise of, how much is going to be crowdfunded, how much is TIF, how much is, other funding that you might be getting? What does the whole package look like in terms of how you're going to make this work?
Yeah, it's about a little over $4 million, the whole package. Crowdfunding, the small equity raise, we'll put in $1,070,000. That's the current maximum. There would be additional, what they call Reg D equity financing, similar stuff for larger net worth investors for another $2 million. And then we have some small grants that were available from energy improvements, and those are probably less than $50,000 from Ameren for some of the energy upgrades that we're doing. And then the TIF program of up to $1 million. So that's the overall number.
So do you have, for instance, like your larger investments, do you have commitments in place?
No, you really can't in the equity business get a commitment from someone until it's officially As a matter of fact, we're prohibited from getting any commitments other than people who are interested involved. You have to file, as I say, the SEC is very strict, but once you do that, then it becomes wide open. You'll actually see ads coming out in the newspapers and radio and TV announcing that we're available for people to invest. All we could do up to this point is show people the project and do it. And the interesting part about the equity financing is that once it starts, it then builds fairly quickly. We've built in some incentives for the early people who come in, so there are some programs that enhance it, but it's not something where you can get somebody to commit early.
So I guess what I meant was not for the equity piece. I thought you said that there were $2 million of larger, more traditional investments.
Well, yes, that's called Reg D. So the crowdfunding is a generic term. It means that you're going to open yourself up for equity financing. But 100% of the traditional bank financing here is being provided by equity, either through the smaller investors or these larger investors. That's what I meant when I said those will be larger investors who can put 100, 200, 300,000 in.
Oh, okay, but it's still all part of that equity crowdfunding.
It all will all be equity, right?
So how does the timing of that works in terms of what you need to get the project started and what's the time frame for the construction, all that kind of stuff until you're operational?
We're allowing about 6 months for all the financing. Again, we've done a lot of groundwork already, and there are some large investors looked at it. We can't take commitments from them, but they've looked at it and seem excited. And once you do the 6 month, the financing should be done over the first 6 months, and then about another 6 months of construction. So 12 to 14 months from the time we start to its completion. We're projecting everyone late summer, early fall of next year.
Anything else, Sheila?
Yeah, can you tell us why TIF funding is required for this to be a success?
Yeah, so the TIP funding is very important to do the kind of project that we want to do. Obviously with this building, if you were looking at the pictures, the renderings, like I said, we want to make this, an elevated experience. Like I said, very upscale, city feel, urban. We're not really cutting any corners on the construction of this project. We're doing everything the right way, all the way from the structure of the equity financing, having to do all this work and all these disclosures ahead of time. So the tip would be, really to do everything we're doing, especially with the rooftop and all the extra structural work that is involved with that. It'd really be impossible to do this without the TIF.
Can you, Val or Abby, can you explain how the TIF works? I know it's going to be future increments, so how does that work with when they get their money, or is it going to be paid back at the end of the project? How does that going to work?
Abby, I'll go ahead and let you take that one.
Yeah, I can answer that. So the redevelopment agreement has not been drafted yet, but what our recommendation is for this project to recoup any additional increment that it generates on the site, so that it wouldn't be taking from any stock of available increment right now, but not until it's open and has been fully assessed at its new value. And then the additional increment that is generated at that site will go back into the project. So that would be after the project is complete and operating and fully assessed, based wholly on future increment.
So they've obviously spent the money already. It just gets reimbursed to them based on the...
And that's a requirement of all of our TIF projects. We never put funds up front. They always have to spend the money, and then it's been reimbursed.
But
Can I follow up on that, Sheila? Would you mind?
yeah, no, please.
So if the project is entirely funded up front with the $4 million investment, where does the TIF actually have an impact in this project? If it's at the end over a course of so many years up to $1 million, is this being used to actually reimburse investors? And does that really qualify as TIF qualifying expenses?
So we would only reimburse TIF eligible expenses that were put into the rehab of the building. That can be Tony mentioned the roof, the HVAC, the elevators. We've looked at their estimated budgets and identified sufficient amount of project costs that would be eligible for TIF reimbursement. They're going to have to bridge those funds, whether they do that through their equity investments or through loans from investors or traditional financing is up to them. And that way it's pretty similar to most of our TIF projects where they have to expend the funds and then wait for a reimbursement. It's just that the horizon for this is the life of the downtown TIF. So the way that we've recommended this agreement to be structured is kind of similar to Hy-Vee, where they are just recouping the increment that they generate for the life of the TIF up to a maximum amount. So they estimate that they will generate an additional property tax value of about $90,000 annually. And so our recommendation is that then they're able to recoup that additional increment for the life of the TIF up to a maximum award of $1 million. That puts the risk entirely on the developer, we think, and also the onus on them to create a great project. If they build something that's sparkly and like the Taj Mahal of downtown Springfield, then it'll be assessed higher and they can recoup additional increment up to our maximum stated amount of $1 million.
A question to follow up on that. So how do you plan to bridge that then, because you're going to need that $1 million up front to do it.
So the answer to part of that is just like what Val said, is that given the commitment and based on how much of that is available immediately or over that term, that's easily financed with a bridge loan because that's immediately repaid back with the taxes. So that part's easier to finance because that's has an immediate payback every year. Whatever portion comes toward the front end or whatever portion comes on the annual, those are financeable with regular traditional lenders.
And I guess you'll have what, like a commitment letter or something like that from a lender before you start, or how would you foresee that?
Once we know what the commitment is, yes, okay. You could do that. Those are fairly easy to do, but we needed to know what the total is and B, the structure. That would help.
Sheila, did you have any additional questions?
No, just I guess a comment. I think that this is the kind of project that TIF was, that was really designed for. I think it has, I think it's very innovative. And I guess the one thing I would want, if maybe they could explain a little bit, talk a little bit about some other success stories using this equity crowdfunding. If this is so unique for this type of project, you guys sound like you're pretty confident it's going to work. So maybe you could just describe that a little bit as to why you're so confident.
The equity financing program has been around for, almost 50 years in real estate, and they were doing small, what were called private placements 45 years ago. They were very restricted on who you could offer to, the amount it could ever mention it publicly. When the Jobs Act was passed in 2012, crowdfunding was created and first started in 2016. So it's fairly new in the marketplace. It's only been around a little over 4 years. There's only about 43 or 44 companies in the whole country that are called crowdfunding portals that are allowed to put a website out to publicly market a registered security that the SEC has approved. Well, they don't approve it. They allow you to do it. So it's a tacit approval. As David mentioned, the most successful ones around the country right now have been people who are like breweries or some consumer products. Equity, crowdfunding and equity capital raises like this are different than like Kickstarter or GoFundMe, which are more like donations. This is actually ownership. You're actually buying a piece, you're getting a share of a company that owns a business or a building or an asset. And as he mentioned, not only some of the breweries, but also some high-tech companies that have started this way. Currently, the maximum has been allowed is $1 million, but that's soon going to expand it, we think, to as high as $4 or $5 million by next spring. So it's a relatively new company. That's best success right now have been with breweries. And as you know, craft breweries have exploded all over the country. I mean, there's probably 100 of them that have done crowdfunding campaigns. So that's where most of the success is.
Karen, do you have any additional questions?
No, I don't. I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Mark,
Can
how
I
about
follow
you?
up on? Can I follow up on Tony's comment there?
Oh, sure.
Part of what he was mentioning, I think this is important to note, and he can maybe speak on this more in his history, is those private placements and kind of these more real estate private placements, is how he called it. It's important to note how crowdfunding creates this new frontier of development. That's where it's more accessible to the average person. That's what's really important to note. So back in the day, maybe Tony, you could speak to this. You know, it would take how much in legal and accounting fees to set up something like this. And now with the SEC regulating crowdfunding, it's much more accessible. It is new. So, you know, newer 2016 is when it really became a thing. But it's important to not confuse it with Kickstarter. Like you said, this is not donation based. This is you own a part of it. And it's a lot different than the old days.
And that came up about what's the difference. One of the things about crowdfunding is this huge change in the legal and accounting structure that's required. What was $50,000 30 years ago is down to as little as $4,000 or $5,000 in legal and accounting fees. They've made it extremely simple to enter this, as long as you follow the rules. I mean, we filed a 64-page Form C with the SEC, which included 11 to 12 pages of financial review. That is the complicated part. Once you're past that, the legal and accounting is hugely different. And we think, and we've mentioned this early on, that this also opens up opportunities for a lot of other small businesses like ours here in the Central Illinois to access capital where small people would invest. So that's what we like.
Before we move right on to
So can I just ask real quick, so with this Form C thing, when do you expect that to be either approved, or how does that process work? And was the TIF part of that? I mean, that you were seeking the TIF as part of the approval for that?
Yeah, actually, we had to put language in about the TIF, and Abby gave us some good legal language that we included in the Form C. It was filed. The original Form C was filed September 15th, and then we had to put an amendment in, a small amendment, and that was filed October 3rd, I think it was. So the Form C is already filed as part of SEC. They don't approve or disapprove it. They just give you the requirements that you have to register it. So it's a public record right now.
Before we move to Mark, if there's anybody on the Zoom call that would like to comment after the commissioners have all had their time, would you just enter that into chat so that I know? Thank you. Mark, any additional?
Yeah, just so it sounds like there'll be, multiple owners. There won't be one single investor with, really control of the company. It does sound like to me. So tell me a little bit about the management of the entity, and I assume there'll be a board of directors, or how does decisions get made and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, first of all, it's an LLC, so there's two managing partners. That's David and myself. We also early on created a development team, and he mentioned that we actually have a couple of them right here today. Kelly Sander, who's our architect, and Tyler Smith, who's part of the real estate team, and professionals who are already involved in the Springfield area. And as part of our Form C, and you see, we created a development team called Hub Ventures, and that's 11 people who are from various walks of life, some people from the construction industry, and various other people who contributed a small amount of capital and some loans, which we call the seed money. And that's all part of the development management team. So we're the general partners. We work it over with the development team and then manage the property and do the development. The development side and the financing is actually the two big stages to go through. One is financing, then two is the construction. And that part, we have a lot of expertise. Some of our early investors were big contractors from town. Some were, as I say, the architect and realtors and people who have good expertise across the board. We've been very fortunate.
That leads me to my next question, which I think you've answered, which is, I saw you're doing your own, basically general contracting.
Yes, sir.
So I guess, concerns that pop into my head with that are things like, have you accurately projected what the cost will be, cost overruns, all those things. So can you, it sounds like you have a good team, but can you elaborate a little bit?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, nothing is ever perfect in that world because that's the world of renovation. I've been involved in 15, 18 properties, much larger than this, as much as 300,000 square feet. They require you to hire the right kind of people up front, the architects and the engineers, and go through their major components in terms of roof and HVAC and electrical and plumbing, and have those people involved early on and give you good numbers and good estimates. We've got those bids in already. So the general contractor is the person who's coordinating and does the bidding. We've done that in every other project. One was done just 4 years ago, right over here nearby in Decatur, where I GC'd our own project. And luckily, we've been very fortunate in dealing with several of the good local subcontractors who have already started. We literally already published with TIF guidelines one advertisement in the paper to start the elevator bid, and we did get a bid already from one of the larger elevator companies, because that, ironically, elevators is about an 8 to 9 month lead time. They're very tough right now, especially during COVID. So we actually published that and started that process already on the elevator. The other major bids are pretty much all in, and we're well within our range. So it's a typical thing. And the architect and myself have worked on a couple of projects before. The biggest one is in Decatur here. We did pretty close to the same amount of work here, and we're comfortable with that.
And I assume you've got some contingency built into the budget.
A lot.
and all that. Yeah.
A lot.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Is that it? Any commissioners have any follow-up questions?
Do you plan to use local labor?
Actually, yes. We've always had a good relationship with not only just local trades, other than the elevator, who's a St. Louis company, but they have a Springfield office. The bid that came into us from the elevator company is the St. Louis, but they do have a Springfield office. And everything else, especially having worked with a couple of folks in the unions, we're very comfortable with everything.
Well, Abby,
subject to the bids that are required.
Right, and Abby, you want to elaborate on that? That is part of the TIP.
Yes. So with any TIP agreement, the developer is required to publicly bid any portion of the contract that is part of the agreement. So they have to publicly place an ad for bid, accept the lowest responsible bidder. They're also required to use, if the award is $100,000 or more, they need to use at least 51% of the labor hours local to Springfield, which doesn't mean that the company is located in Springfield, but actually the people on the job site have to have a Springfield address. They're also required to use contractors and subs who have a Department of Labor approved apprenticeship program. And then we're also, there was a newer resolution passed by City Council about minority participation, and we're fine tuning the language about how to implement that requirement in our agreements as well. So all of those requirements will be part of this project.
One follow-up question, is it safe to assume that the alderman is on board and likes the project?
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. In fact, he was invited today, but he wasn't able to make it, so yes. Any other questions, comments? And I don't see that I have any requests from the public. So at this point.
Val,
Oh, sure, go
it's
ahead.
Keisha.
Uh-huh.
Do you have any minority vendors that will be in the building as a vendor too?
So far, we've looked at 4 vendors who've committed to us, and one's an African American, and by committed, saying that they're interested. I mean, there's nothing signed, no lease. It's just people that said they're interested. We have 2 women, 1 African American. Well, 3 women. One's an African American, and the only other one is an Asian person with an Asian Hispanic as well. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Hispanic, so.
I just have a few comments.
Sure, go ahead.
Karen here. I think this is a great project, not only for downtown, but for Springfield as a whole. It really brings life and invigorates downtown, and it brings a metropolitan style concept to what people refer to as Springfield in the backwoods, I guess. So it brings that and adaptive reuse of an old building that's been sitting vacant for 20 plus years. And it's the perfect example of where TIF should be used. And I like the way that you're structuring the TIF request, that it's reimbursement in the paid-in gap as a property tax, that difference. And the thing is that the building then has to be complete. The project has to be open. The business has to be maintained and in operation over the years in order to receive that reimbursement. So really, all of that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this TIF request and send it off to City Council for their review.
Thank you, Karen.
I'll second that.
All right, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Can you tell me who made the second on that motion?
Was it Sandy? Who made the second?
Yes, it was Sandy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, our next project that we have up today is property at, where if I can find my address, and I'm not seeing it right now, good grief. Anyway, Teresa Haley is representing Visions 1908. It's on 11th Street, that much I know. I can't find my checklist here for that particular project, but I'm sure she will educate us. And if you both would introduce yourselves, and then just so everyone, all the commissioners know, Joey Morris is here with us today, and she would be able to answer most of the questions about CDBG funding. So.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Teresa Haley. I'm president of the Springfield branch NAACP, as well as president and CEO for Visions 1908. Visions 1908 came about in 2016 as part of the high-speed rail relocation when they discovered additional houses that were burnt out from the 1908 race riots. It was our responsibility as the NAACP, and we wanted to make sure that we had a race riot monument and to have a place to store those artifacts. So then it was my responsibility to lead the fundraising team to make sure that happened. In the meantime, between time, the Secretary of Interior came from Washington, D.C. to gracefully bless that location so we can start receiving funds for that. The NAACP was founded because of the 1908 race riots here in Springfield, Illinois. And we are so proud that today, 112 years later, that we have been fighting and trying to get a building it's unfortunate when people around the country come to Springfield and we go, hey, did you know the NAACP was founded because of the race riots? And we take them on the tour that we have, but there's no building for meetings. There's no buildings for our children. We also have a back to school, stay in school program that has been in existence for over 25 years. We have a 99% graduation rate. When we started the program, Rudy Davenport, bless his heart, was our first CEO and director of that program. From there, we used to receive funds, federal grants from PNC Bank and some of the others to support the programs. But like everything else, those things have dwindled away. The school district then stepped in and continued to support our program. They pay a lot of our administrative costs. They pay our teacher salary. They support us on other things that we need to make this program successful. Our meetings in terms of the NAACP, we've had those meetings in churches. We've held our meetings at schools. When we do candidates forums, when we do any type of activities, our food giveaways, they're usually at the churches. But when people have complaints and concerns, they call the NAACP. We either have to meet them at the church, meet them at Starbucks, meet them at McDonald's to hear their complaints. So part of my vision with Visions 1908 came from 1908 race riots, was to make sure that we had a one-stop shop. So when people had a concern or a complaint, they could stop by our office, they could meet with us. When we were holding public meetings, there are a lot of people who want to support us, but they don't believe in coming into the church house. So this is a community building that's open to the public, so anyone who has any concerns can come and address those concerns and meet in a confidential private area. I'm going to introduce Tim and let him give a few moments to talk about the Back to School Stay in School Director. He is our Director of Program and he's done a wonderful job. Tim Allen.
Tim Allen, the Director of Back to School Stay in School. Having a building has been great for us. Our kids, we have kids that range from 15 to 18, freshmen to seniors, and they usually come from impoverished societies, impoverished backgrounds. And our school, being in churches, allowed us to have school for the kids, so it was good, but having our own building allows them to have ownership and take pride in to going to the school. So we're an alternative school. When kids get kicked out of school or kids have a hard time dealing with big settings, we're able to educate them, we're able to mentor them, we're able to counsel them to get them graduated. So if a kid, say, from Springfield, having a hard time at Springfield and he gets kicked out of school, we can accept that kid and get him into a smaller environment and mentor him to get him educated, to also help him become a better human being and a better adult to be ready for society. Being in this program for the last 3 years have helped me realize the importance of having a stable building, a stable place where kids can go, even if they feel like they're less than because they're coming from a district school. Having a building has been amazing. So far, we've had kids come in and see the building and they're like, oh, this is my school. This is where I'm gonna be at. Like, and they take pride in that. Our kids wear uniforms. They come in and they're excited about the opportunity to, they messed up their first chance, but they're excited about their second chance and being in a building that they can say, this is where I graduated from. I went to this school and it was ran like a private school. It was ran with discipline and love and just having a building, their own cafeteria, their own waiting rooms, their own library spots. It's been amazing. And I'm just excited about where we're going with the Back to School Stay in School program. We have kids that, for instance, we have kids that are in foster care. We have kids that are on probation. We also have kids that are good students, but they have mental issues that hold them back from being in large settings. So coming to us, they can come to us and be in a smaller setting. We can talk about their issues. We can also educate them. We have teachers. We have 4 teachers with master's degrees. So we can also educate them at the highest level in a smaller setting, in a good school with good people. And it's been amazing having our own building. So I'm really excited about it. We have 12 classrooms over there. We're able to use 8, and Teresa's open to letting us use whatever we want over there. We have a cafeteria that's huge, also a meeting room where we can do art, we can do other things. We have great bathroom facilities. I have my own office. It's just been amazing to have our own building and somewhere the kids can say, you know what, that's my school. Not the church, not the anywhere else, but that's my school. And if we need to meet with a parent at 9 o'clock at night to get something right, meet with a probation officer, you can come over and you can come into my office. You can come to the cafeteria where we have our own stuff and we don't have to rely on, messing up with it. There's a funeral at the church. It's like, oh, we can't have a meeting today, or there's something else going on. We can't have that today. So a part of the kids' success and them building is having something they can say, that's my school. That's where I graduated from. I used to get in trouble, but now, I'm over here in this school. We have good teachers. We have people that care about us. And I graduated from that school. The kids come into the classroom and they have their ties on and they have their shirts tucked in, their pants, and it starts saying like, I'm not a bad kid. I made some mistakes, but now I go to back to school, stay in school, and they give me an opportunity to change things. We've had kids go from using guns out on the street to using them in the military, from not passing classes to honor roll in college. So the opportunity to have our own building is amazing. It's actually life-saving. I believe our program saves lives, and having a building of our own is just going to do more to do that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any questions?
All right, we'll start with you, Mark, since you went last time.
Oh, okay, great. Well, sounds like a great project from everything that I've heard. So is the Visions 1908, is that a new entity that's formed for this, or?
It was formed again in 2016 as
Okay.
part of the Race Riot Monument. I was going to
Okay,
have
gotcha.
to start raising funds for that. So I started the paperwork, got it incorporated at that particular time.
Okay, gotcha. And so that entity will be the owner of the building and will handle all the financial responsibilities that come with the building.
Absolutely.
Okay.
People are already starting to donate to us. We got over $20,000 from Bank of Springfield. The school district, we're asking for up to $25,000. However, they can't sign off on anything until we meet all of the requirements, such as the glitches that you all saw, building codes. We put in new storm doors that had to be metal doors with panic bars on them, things that you traditionally don't think about. We had to put in new smoke detectors, smoke alarms, everything that they required for us to make the school safe for our kids.
And I assume like the Back to School Academy, there's some funding for it that leases it maybe from you, or how does that work?
Yes, and that's the money that comes from the school district. The school district has paid as little as $10,000 and as much as $15,000, but because we have our own building and we know there are going to be additional expenses, our request was for $25,000, and they say they don't see a problem with that. And then we have private donors. We have members who are invested in the community and invested in the organization. There have been 10 of us that said that we would commit to $2,000 each. So that's another $10,000 to $20,000 that we know that's going to come in to support the building. We'll be doing other fundraising because we have no clue on what the expenses are going to be. This is a building that's been closed up for over 5 years. And so we're trying to get an estimate on what the utilities might be. As soon as we got approved for the loan, Kevin Gamble said, here are the keys, go at it, but the gas isn't turned on yet, and I can't get that stuff turned over until we actually close on the building, and we're due to close next week.
Okay, great. Let's see, and I assume, Abby, I'm not familiar enough with the CDBG. This qualifies, it checks all the boxes for CDBG.
That would be for Joey.
Oh,
Yeah, Joey,
sorry.
right over there.
At this point, it does qualify. It is a mixed-use building, and so there is some questions.
Val, I can't hear her.
Okay,
I can't either.
Under your papers.
As I was saying, I'm in the process of determining that with our HUD representative. As Teresa described, it will be a mixed-use facility, so it will be used for more than just the after-school program. Were it just the after-school program, it would be absolutely, no problem. But the fact that it is office space for the NAACP and for the Race Riot Museum creates just a little bit of a nuance.
But that shouldn't be a problem because 85–90% of the building is for the back to school, stay in school. You have to have office spaces when you're the organization. So 85–90%, as we stated with the office space and how it's broke out, Tim kind of provided that to us. we don't foresee that being a problem.
Okay, thank you for that. As I said, I'm in the
Yes.
process of determining that it is eligible for CDBG funding.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Sandy, I'm sorry, I just now saw your chat. You want to go ahead and ask your questions, please?
Are you talking to Sandy?
Yes, yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's okay.
So first of all, I just want to say hi to Coach Allen. So Tim Allen is our twin boys basketball coach. So just want to say hi. I guess I'm just a little bit confused. So you own this building currently, 801 South 11th Street, but you're also in the church, or you're completely now in the new building?
We're completely now in the new building. We moved out on basically September 30th.
Okay, gotcha. I see on Facebook, you guys usually present like student of the week, or, and I am 100% behind this project. I'm in real estate with Remax, and I actually showed this building many years ago, because like you said, it's been on the market for 5 years. So I agree with you. It needs a lot of work, not a lot of work, but it needs some work. So I'm definitely, yeah, it needs some TLC. Yes, it does. So my only question is, is it 150,000 that you're requesting? Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
And
go ahead. Sam,
no, Val, do we have a diagram of what the building will look like? I guess what the renovations will be.
Yes, yes. She just, I confirmed with her last night. She has given me a diagram of the layout of the building, and we can see that 75, 80, 85% at least is going to be used for the stay in school, the program. So
the school, yeah.
Yes. And so,
okay.
And the other thing about the 150,000, this is based on communication. We work very closely with the Bank of Springfield, who owned the building, had the building, and they could see between all the financing that there was a deficit of 150,000, and that's how we arrived at that particular number. That was based on their sources and uses that the banker provided to us.
Okay. Can you send that to us, or yeah.
Sure.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. I'm going to stay on the meeting, but I'm going to go into my inspection, but I will stay and listen.
Okay, thank you. All right. Sheila, do you have any questions?
Yeah, first a disclosure. I don't know if I have to make this, but my husband and I helped to fund the Back to School, Stay in School program. I guess it was 25 years ago. One of the earlier funders to that program. So, and it's a great program. It's been around a long time, and it's served a lot of kids. So I'm obviously very supportive of the program. I do have a couple of questions, just really about operational costs. So the 150,000 from CDBG would go toward renovation costs and building costs. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So I haven't heard anything about what the proposed overall expenses and revenue. You talked, Teresa, you talked a little bit about proposed revenue. Do you have an overall budget amount, what you think it's going to cost you to operate this entire building with its projects?
Currently, based on the bills that we're assessing, we're at $3,000 a month, approximately $1,500 in terms of the mortgage. We don't know what the gas bill is going to be. We do have an itemized bill for the utilities in terms of the electric, but that's only for the last 6 weeks that we've been in the building. Again, the building's been shut down for 5 years. We know that we're spending $250 a month for the internet and the phone service. We're spending $120 a month for the garbage disposal, pickup, and those kinds of things. So we said if we average right about that $3,000 a month, and we do have some people in the community and in the organization that are willing to make donations every month to support, underwrite our expenses. So we're not concerned
Do you have salary expenses outside of the Back to School, Stay in School program?
No, we're volunteers. I'm a volunteer as the
Okay.
branch president and as the state president. You know, our giving makes all the payment that we need. So we don't pay any outside expenses. However, we have partnered with other organizations such as Ameren, like we have an intern, and they pay that intern salary. We're partnering, we're looking at the county building to provide 2 employees to come in and provide the janitorial services. And so we're working with Justine to get that application filled out and to provide the lawn care service and snow and ice removal and those kinds of things.
So the monies that you get from the school district, it totally covers the expenses of this program? I thought you said you had 4 teachers and 25,000 from the school district. That can't possibly cover 4 teachers.
That covers our leasing rental expenses that we've given to the churches over the past year. The school district pays their salaries separately, so that is not included in the $25,000.
Okay, so that's part of your operational budget then, the salaries that they pick up.
Correct.
Okay, I gotcha. Well, that makes it seem much more doable.
Is that it, Sheila?
Sheila, we're waiting on that next donation from you and your husband. It's been 25 years.
It's been 25 years. Yeah, well, you're gonna have to, you gotta ask. If you don't ask, you don't get.
So all you commissioners, I am asking for a donation. We are a struggling organization.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Donate to Tim Allen's Fund through the NAACP Back to School, Stay in School Academy. Absolutely.
Yeah, the kids are good.
Lakeisha, do you have any questions?
No questions. I did see though on the documents, the project checklist, that the only thing that was unchecked was the bid tabulation. Was there a reason for that?
Well, because we've taken this a little tiny bit out of order, we haven't got that completed yet, but that will be done. No question. That will be done.
Okay.
Teresa and I actually just had a little bit of correspondence about that just last night. So.
Yes, we're working on that, and to ensure that we're paying prevailing wage and that we have minority contractors. And Keisha, we will make sure that that happens.
I was about to say, we speaking to the right person to make sure, to ensure that that happens.
Not make that happen, so thank you.
Yes, and I'm in full support of the project. I'm a lifetime member, NAACP member. So yes, I'm in full support of what Teresa and Tim is doing.
Thank you.
All right, and before I ask Karen to ask her questions, if there's anybody from the public that would like to make comment, please let me know via chat. Thank you. Karen.
You asked or stated the answer to the question I was going to ask is how you derived at the 150,000. But considering that the bid tabulations aren't in, that potentially could fluctuate a bit.
It would fluctuate up, not down, trust me. There are so many things that need to be replaced on this building, but we have to start somewhere, and we're just trying to get our foot in the door and keep things moving. I know I personally have put over $5,000, $6,000 on my credit card just to pay for those steel doors with the panic bars that we had to have in place. And other people have donated their times and services, such as Calvin Pitts and his organization as well. So we have a lot of people who care about the community and care about our children. And so we're doing everything to make sure things are safe and in order so we can move forward.
I think it's a great project, and I commend you for all of your efforts in doing all of this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, from the audience, looks like Doris Turner, you have a couple of questions. Doris, can you hear us?
Hi, Alderwoman.
Hi, I did. First, I want to commend Teresa and the NAACP for all the great work that they've been doing in the community for years and years and years, and also for establishing the Stay in School, Back to School program and keeping it going in spite of, having to move and all those other things that are going on. So congratulations on all the great work that you're doing. I do have a couple of questions that I have a couple, and then I have a couple that were posed to me by other alders. So for the past several months, I have introduced a series of ordinances that deal with economic development on the east side of Springfield. So I'm really concerned about that and the dollars that we have to go for that. So one of the questions that I have is, there's the financials for the project are based on NAACP financials and not the organization's financials. Is there a reason for that?
Well, they're based on, I was trying to do it a combination of both, but I was told by our national headquarters, because we technically as the organization can't own property, it has to be in the Visions 1908's name. However, NAACP will fully be operating, you know, with our back to school, stay at school in that building. But let's say our national decided to liquidate their properties. They could just come in and take our property. And the only way we could prevent that from happening is to make it something else. And because Visions 1908 was created for the race riot and starting to raise funding for the monument, it made complete sense to tie that together that way. We do have a banking account, and we do have over $18,000 sitting in that banking account, but it's only been in existence for a few months after we were approved for the loan on the building.
Okay, is that, Val, have we ever had that type of a situation before?
Not exactly quite like this, I have to admit. But, you know, there's unique circumstances, you know, about something like this. But no, I can't say that I have specifically had anything like this before.
So does that create any problems with HUD and the program management?
Well, I mean, it's a challenge for us, that's for sure. And we're working to try and get to the best resolution that we possibly can. You know, the important thing for HUD is to make sure that we are meeting one of our national objectives, which is the benefit to low mod income. And we know that this particular program will benefit low to mod young people, especially struggling to stay in school.
Okay, so would that set a precedent for any other entity that were to just, you know, I mean, I'm not questioning. First, let me say, nobody leave here and say that Doris is questioning the Visions 1908 establishment. That's not I'm looking forward. So would this create a precedent for any other entity that were to, say for instance, I went out tomorrow and started a nonprofit, and then could I come in and qualify for funding based off of another organization's financials?
Again, it would be dependent on whether or not that you are meeting the national objective for HUD funding. If you're asking specifically about CDBG funding.
Right.
We have to do elimination of slum and blight. We have to do, you know, benefit the low mod income. Let's see, what's some of the others, Joey? Area benefit, yes. So we have to look at those first and then dig deeper to see that, make sure that we, there is a little wiggle room in some of the funding that we have to kind of just go slightly outside the scope. That's why with the initial requests that Teresa asked for, we can't quite give that much just because of that particular scope. So again, with working with the bank and understanding some of the sources and uses, we came back to that 150,000.
Okay, so, and then I guess another question is the public bidding process. So I guess my question would be, how do we arrive at the cost for renovation if there's been no bidding on the renovations? I mean, is it just so I guess my question is, did we arrive at this $450,000 project cost based on the purchase price of the building and then just saying, we think we're going to need $300,000 to rehab it, and then that's how we arrived at the 450? Or is it, or was there some type of inspection bid process so that we actually know the cost of the renovations?
So what we did, the NAACP, based on the checklist that we got from the school district, we contacted labor unions, we contacted vendors, we contacted architects, and we asked them to come give us a bid, walk through our building, let us know how much the costs would be, such as replacing those aluminum doors with the steel doors, with the panic bars, such as doing all the electrical wiring. So we're doing a lot of work with the labor unions. I have gotten tired, as you know, of people saying that they can't find people who look like me. So I am making sure that we have people who look like me on the project. That was most important for us. We could share those bids with you. I think we have 3 or 4 different bids from local roofers. We have 3 or 4 different bids from people who are doing the central air. All of the things that we have, we've gotten 3 to 5 bids. So we're pretty comfortable as an organization who fights against discrimination to make sure that all people are created and treated fairly and equally. So I think we've done our homework and we didn't just guess. I can share that list with you and all of those proposals if you'd like to see it. Other organizations who were bidding on that building prior to us getting the building doors, they did share their bids with us. And so we contacted them and was told nothing had changed from 30 days or 60 days prior with the other organizations who looked at that building. And we felt comfortable with those bids that they got, so they didn't have to come back out and provide another bid to us.
Okay.
And to clarify, Doris, what will have to happen with this process going forward, and I spoke with Teresa just about this recently, is that once we have a subrecipient agreement, she will have to publicly bid these, and then choose the most responsible bidder. And so she just she went ahead and got some bids herself, just so she would have a kind of an idea of what that cost would be.
We had to get the bids ourselves in order to get the loan approved from the bank and to let the school district know, what the costs were going to be.
And then, and like I said, to follow our process, she will have to do a bid process with this.
And that was basically my question, is whether we were just going to go with, if we were going outside of the normal CDBG bidding process. That was my question.
Again, she had double things. She had a couple hoops she had to jump through. So one was with the bank, but to follow and to receive the funds from CDBG, she will have to do the bidding process.
Okay, so if the rehab is the rehab is 300,000, and we can do 30% of that, then the 150,000 seems to be outside of that parameter.
The 30%
of the 300,000.
Well, there's I don't know where,
because it said that I got the $300,000 figure because I was told, maybe I didn't hear correctly, that the rehabilitation cost was $300,000. Right. So if CDBG funds are to be used for the rehabilitation costs, and we can do 30%, the
30%, Alderwoman, is usually 30% on TIF. We can go higher. There's really no cap, let's just say, with that. But 30% is really, you're probably thinking of when we do TIFs, we try and cap it at 30%.
Alderman Doors, the project cost is $450,000.
Right. The project cost is $450 because it's $300,000 plus $150,000 for the purchase of the property. So it was my understanding that the request was for the rehab only and not the purchase of the property.
Correct.
So I was dividing those out. So actually the project cost would be 300,000 and not 450,000.
Correct, yes.
Correct?
because
Okay.
Purchasing the
Correct.
building, yes,
Okay, so the project cost would actually be 300,000.
correct.
Okay.
And it's just CDBG and TIP, you know, kind of go back and forth. And I know we've looked at both ways of funding this and opted not to go with the TIP just merely because we were taking that property off of the tax roll.
Right.
So that's the reason that we didn't go with TIP.
Okay, so actually the project cost would be 300,000 and then the percentage would be 50%.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, ma'am? Okay, terrific, thank you. Anyone
Now,
else?
can I just ask one question? How much CDBG money do we have available?
Oh, good grief. I have no idea. I couldn't, Joey, you got a clue?
We can
No, I
use
don't.
the NAACP, we can use more. Is that why you're asking?
You know,
That's not necessarily what I meant, but I just, we're not,
when we
how would we not know that?
No, here's the reason, is because when we do CDBG funding, there are different pots of money in CDBG. There are a certain percentage of money can be used for certain projects.
But for this project, for this type of project, then is this going to use all the money available for the budget year, or is this part of it, or?
No, this is just part of it. This is part of it.
Sheila, this would be considered a public facility, and that is a different pot of CDBG money, as Val was explaining. We have public services, public facilities, we have home rehab, we have lots of different things that CDBG money is used for and allocated for each year. So the totals change based on the projects that we're doing on any given year.
So would the funding come out of the current budget year?
It would, yes, it would. It would come out of 2020's budget.
Okay, and we've got plenty, or at least enough to fund this project.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This project will be amazing. Our kids, the poverty level for us is, we have kids that parents make from 0 to 20,000. So having a great building would benefit our kids to go to somewhere nice and feel like at home. So thank you.
And as I said, this is a benefit. One of the national objectives that we have to always look at, and it would benefit low to mod, as you said. Most of these children come from very impoverished background. So.
And they do receive free lunch through the Urban Leagues program, so food meals are provided to us as well.
All right.
Val, this is Karen. How would the funds be distributed?
Oh, they're on reimbursement, just like every CDBG fund that we have. You know, like I said, once we go through the bid process and they go through, and as soon as something is spent, then they submit the bills to us and it gets paid. Joey, is there anything more you'd want to add to that?
Other than once an architect is determined for the project, then the architect would sort of lead the invoicing process.
Right. Yep. Oh. Anything else, Karen?
No, I don't. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. Is there a motion for this particular project?
I'll make the motion to approve this project.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Teresa.
All right. Some unfinished business. I was asked to give an update on the COVID assistance programs. As you all know, we worked with the Urban League on rental assistance program, and the Urban League is still working diligently at taking applications and providing all of the documentation that is needed for those applications. One of the challenges that we run into that I don't think anybody thought might possibly happen, and that is because there's so much opportunity out there. A lot of people applied, started an application process, but then applied for something else. And because there can be no duplication of funding, they might be able to get more funding in another program. And so they're kind of stalled on a lot of collection of data because people are waiting to see, well, if they can get more money from another program, this is the reason why they haven't been able to finish as many applications. So we're still moving forward. Our contract with the Urban League is through February of 21. We know the need is great out there. And in fact, we have working with the Landlord Association, we're working on a survey to find out how great the need still is out there. And so we'll be following up with that and getting you more information.
Val.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry, because I have to get off at 12. I did want to ask this particular to this situation. What should we tell people? Because I hear some people are not even getting an answer back to just follow up with where the process is with our program that we're providing. And then to also piggyback off of that, so Governor Pritzker had the $5,000 grant. They just submitted a email back to tenants saying that we will not hear a decision until maybe November 10th, and they just opened it up. So while everybody is kind of sitting and waiting to see what other agencies are giving out money, people are getting behind further and further and further with their rent.
Correct. But again, that's a decision of each of the tenants and what they want to decide. But I can most definitely see, if I were that person, would I want to wait and see if I can get 5,000 or just 1,000? So that is definitely up to the tenant themselves to make that decision.
So are they contacting the tenants right now to even talk about this process that's going on, to let them know where they are?
That's what the Urban League, yes, the Urban League says to call them, and you can check in on the process. We're totally out of that. We hired them to manage this, so it's something that we're not quite in that process. We just get updates periodically, and we have access to the HMIS system where everything is uploaded. So we're trying to keep track of that.
And then my last question was, I don't know if you or Abby can answer this, since people are so behind on their rent currently with CWLP, is that still kind of ongoing where they'll make sure their power doesn't get cut off during the winter? Or I have some concerns from constituents in the community about, well, I'm trying to pay my utilities bill, but I can't pay my rent, or I only can give $100 or $200 to my rent.
Well, what I can tell you from working with CWLP is that as long as people will call, I know it's a little bit of a nerve-wracking thing for people to be behind and then to call to say, okay, I know I'm behind, but as long as you're calling and giving them, information and letting them know you're willing to keep paying, they're not going to turn your heat off. They just will continue. But people need to work with CWLP, their offices, and call them.
Okay.
So
okay.
Good question, Keisha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman, do you want to add anything to that comment?
No, you're absolutely right. Springfield's in a unique position with regard to the moratorium because we do own our utility, and we did put in a moratorium on shutoffs, and have just been asking people to contact the CWLP offices and make some arrangements, some payment arrangement. And as long as they do that, their services will not be terminated. But people have to make a proactive move and contact the office and make that payment arrangement.
Thank you.
Val, do we know what, how many applications have in fact been approved?
No, I don't actually. I can only say is that from our, we have not distributed money yet, meaning we haven't paid Urban League for any assistance. However, they may be helping them and just have not invoiced us yet.
Val, is the city working on taking CDBG funds and doing grants for small businesses that are struggling through this time as well? I mean, they're trying to maintain staffing levels, but have fallen behind on rent and utilities. Is that something that's been in the works, and is it?
Correct, yes. In our amendment that we put forward when we designated that $799,000 for help in the community, we set aside $200,000 for 40 $5,000 grants. But they also had tied a loan program to that, and there's where we ran into a little bit of problems. The loan program was a real glitch for HUD. They had some real issues with that. And so recently the mayor and I had a conversation about like splitting those two. So let's just go ahead and do the grant program separate and wait and do the loan program later. So we've had some discussion about doing that and doing that locally. And quite frankly, one of my suggestions, and we'll see this, is that we utilize the EDC as someone to review those sort of applications. That's not 100% at this point, but that is something we are definitely looking at because we want to get those grants in the hands of the businesses.
Yeah, I mean, we can't wait too much longer here. We're going to have several businesses shy that are going to participate.
Right. Another challenge is going to be the exact same thing that I just mentioned with the rental assistance. Is there's so many funds out there, so many pots of money. Most recently the big program, Business Interruption Grant, came back around. And so people are, applying for those and trying to see. And again, we, with our HUD funds, have to really watch any kind of duplication of benefits. So let's just say you got the PPP in for March, April, May, June, let's say, for instance. You can still get funds from our HUD pot as long as you're using it for, July or August expenses. We just have to be very cautious that there's not a duplication of funding. So that's another one of the challenges that we have to watch out for, and with people applying for multiple opportunities for funding. Some of them are just would probably want to wait, but like I said, the mayor and I have had a brief discussion, and we're working on putting together how we could work the grants, just get the grants going as soon as possible.
So Val, are we going to have to go back through HUD and get approval if you guys separate these out?
For the loan program.
Will we have to go back through HUD to get the new concept approved?
Correct. For the loan program, not for the...
Right, for the loan program. So I guess I just want to say, and you know this, but I just want to express my frustration because, maybe I don't know if other people as well, but I was one who expressed in May that I didn't think that HUD was going to approve leveraging, using that money for leveraging of a loan program. So here we are, 6 months later, and we still don't have, small businesses aren't getting any money. We're still not, we haven't even figured out the, I guess I just would urge the mayor to, decide on this and let's get it going. Because now you have to go back through HUD again. And that takes, that takes time.
So Sheila.
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, I agree with you, Sheila. And what's frustrating is
COVID funds and CDBG funds, they're the same process. And so this is what I've been talking about, HUD and the bureaucratic nightmare that we're living. Because when people, when COVID funds were released, the purpose is you get them in the hands of the individuals ASAP, just like a tornado, just like a flood. But they came up with this entirely different process. You talk about rental assistance. The HMIS system had never been used. The reason you have to use that is because now they want to make sure that you don't duplicate funds going to whatever. We had this discussion with the food bank. The food bank funds could have been utilized previously, as long as they didn't use state funds during that same month or whatever they're using for. So there's not duplication. So it's been a very frustrating process. So in answer to your question on the loan, they authorize loans, in this case for CDBG funds, but not COVID. And that's a head scratcher because what we're talking about is $250,000 or whatever the set aside was, that allows you $2.5 million in loans. And that's 3% interest. So I don't know if you can get 3% interest on a commercial microloan at a bank. I doubt it. And what we're going to do is push it because it's all inclinations for this winter. It's going to be a heck of a lot harder to get credit of that magnitude. So we will be bringing it forward, as Val said, with the grants, separating that out. I think we could have gone forward with the grants, but it is what it is. I mean, that's they are making up the process as we move along with this. So it's been very frustrating for everybody. And, you know, it should have been a lot quicker. But I think they just, you know, we're trying to, you know, that's what happens when legislation happens. You have to create the infrastructure to make sure the processes are followed adequately. So it's beyond reproach when people ask, say, well, why'd you do that? Why'd you do this? And that's what HUD's trying to figure out. So that's just the frustrating part of it. But we are aware of it. We're moving it forward. But really, there's been resources out there through the state of Illinois, the Business Interruption Grant right now. So those resources are being utilized right now. But there's going to be a greater need, especially when winter comes amongst us.
And just to give you a perspective, we got notice that we were going to receive the $799,000 on March 30th. I received the guidance for how to utilize the funds August 10th or 12th. I can't remember. One of those. So August 10th. So almost 5 months later, I finally got the guidance that would tell me how I can utilize those funds.
Yeah, I don't mean to be pointing any fingers at anybody. It's just a very, like you said, Mayor, it's very frustrating. I mean, these people need this stuff now. They needed it months ago. And the same thing with our rental assistance program. I mean, people have been going without being able to pay their rent for 6 months now. So it's just, you know, it's going to come to a head. And I hope they get their act together.
Yep. Doris, I think I see that you had a statement, something.
No, I guess I agree with Sheila that it is very frustrating, the whole process, because when we allocated the funding how we were going to allocate the funding for our COVID relief monies, we did set aside specific funding for a micro business grant program. And the reason why we wanted it to be separate and be that grant program is because the parameters that we set around the program made it easier for businesses who did not qualify for federal COVID relief to qualify for this funding. So for it, you know, and that was to reach those that were hardest hit, that had no place else to go. So now for it to drag out this long is extremely frustrating, not only for us as alders, but also for those businesses that we had actually reached out to and said, you know, help is on the way. So to try to, you know, combine it with the micro loan program doesn't help anyone and has really caused these delays to happen. So I'm hopeful that we can move on this very quickly.
Right. Thank you.
That's the frustrating part. The grants and the microloan, those are two different programs. It's not combined. So that's, yeah, it's just been a frustrating process all around.
All right, any other comments? I think Lisa Stott, Clemens Stott, DSI, wanted to make some comments.
Thanks, Val. I guess good afternoon now, everyone. This has been a really interesting meeting today. Some really interesting projects coming before you. So it's an exciting time for Springfield. Out of crisis comes creativity, right? And it's really exciting that we're moving in that direction. Just wanted to touch on the letter that we sent Mayor Langfelder that we've also sent to the aldermen and to you as well. DSI putting together our priorities. Certainly the CDBG grants versus the loans could have been on this list. Many of the small businesses, the micro businesses, as Alderman Turner said, they did not actually qualify for PPP and things like that because of the way they're structured as sole proprietors. So that's why the grant program from the city is so important. But we touched on 3 separate issues in our letter. Enos Park TIF renewal is very important to downtown because if the Enos Park TIF is not renewed, then downtown TIF is on the hook for some of the funds for the YMCA. So we feel like based on what we've heard back from the legislature, that the city should put forth the Enos Park TIF renewal separately from the Madison Park Place TIF renewal, which happens a couple years later. So that's our ask for that. Also, the city is setting up their PACE program, which is environmental incentives. And we would ask that, you all know how complicated downtown can be for revitalization. Many of the projects that come before you for downtown revitalization are extremely complicated. So we would just ask that if the city is going to have multiple administrators for PACE, that downtown projects have one person dedicated to downtown. Much like Abby does with TIF administration, we just think that one person handling PACE projects would be really important for the success of those projects. And then finally, we have had a $50,000 a year partnership with the city for the last 3 years. And because of COVID and because of the budget that will change over time, we have not solidified that partnership for this year. And certainly, no one can argue with the ROI that downtown Springfield brings. Everything we've done this year is to keep our businesses afloat, and we're very focused on economic recovery. We've done things like virtual cash mobs to get people to shop local. We've introduced downtown bucks into the economy for different things we've done that go directly back to be spent at the downtown businesses. We worked with the mayor and the public works department on outdoor downtown, creating these outdoor seating areas, and are working with the city on making those more permanent in some areas for next year. And our funding, a lot of Main Street organizations across the country, they get up to 40% of their funding from their municipality. Usually our funding from the city is about 17% of our entire revenue stream. We raise 5 times the amount of funding that the city gives us. With COVID, it would be about 20% of our funding, so that's still half of the average. So just wanted to bring that to your attention as people involved in economic development. These are kind of our economic development priorities. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa? All right, thank you. The last thing I think we'd like to do, as much as I love running these meetings, I think it's time for us to elect a chair for this. Do we have anybody who would like to volunteer or volunteer somebody?
Val, I just want to note that we no longer have quorum, so I'm not sure the commission can.
Okay, does Andy have to leave? Thank you. Okay.
Perhaps we can put this on the agenda for our next meeting.
Okay, so think and make sure your phones, you duck those calls if somebody's going to try and elect you. So no, so just be thinking about that, and we need to have a chair. I think it would be more appropriate for someone to be able to be the chair for this. And if there are no other comments or questions, we will adjourn the meeting. May I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you so much, and we will see
Bye,
you
everybody.
on Tuesday, December the 8th. Thank you so much for your time and participation.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye. Sheila must be on a major drive. Yeah, to be on there